Everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today I have another video all about Rinea foil, and today I want to share with you 3 ways on how you can distress the foil. Now, Rinea foil is a foil paper, but it's a little bit more unique than your average mirrored cardstock or something like that. It's very shiny, it's double-sided, but it is moldable. It holds its shape. It's really fun to work with. And I've got a few different ways to show you how you distress it. The first way, we're going to utilize that moldability, and we are just going to crumple this up. Now, most of the time when you would crumple up a sheet of paper, roll it into a ball, it might not stick in a ball quite like that. This is going to stick into a ball until you peel it apart. But as you unfold this on a regular piece of paper, the mountains and the valleys of the folds and things like that, they're going to flatten out a little bit. They're not going to be as well defined. You could even probably take that paper, run it through like a laminator or something, and then you would just have crease marks. On the Rinea foil, you are going to keep those mountains and valleys and all of that great texture and dimension with this. So each one of those folds, each one of those creases from the crumpling of the paper is going to be raised. It is such a neat look. It almost looks like a piece of fabric. I absolutely love the way this looks. Now, I used it on pink here, but you can use it on any color and it looks stunning. Now, with this, whenever you do crumple it up, you lose a little bit of the width and the length of this. So I always like to cut it a little bit bigger when I do this. And then I just place it down onto whatever I'm covering up. In this case, it's a card base. Or you can just go with the size you have. If it's much smaller than your card base, that's fine too. But with this, I wanted it the same exact size as my card base. So A2 size, I just place it on and then use my scissors to trim around the edges. Super easy to do. The foil paper cuts like butter. To finish this card, I'm going to be using the new Hope stamp set from Joy Claire. I have used this on a previous card, and I put that video over on Instagram. I have been uploading a few little short one-off cards over there. There's no voiceover. It's just all music backgrounds, so they're super easy and quick to make. And it's just another way for me to add some cards that normally I wouldn't make videos for, but it shows you how I made them even so. So they're over on Instagram TV. I will leave a link down below to that. Now with this Hope stamp set, I went ahead and used the Glamorous ink from Imagine. This is VersaFine Clear ink. And I went ahead and stamped down those little boxing gloves on an oval die cut. Then I stamped Strength right underneath that with some Morning Mist ink from VersaFine Clear also. Mounted that on top of the card base with some foam tape. Super simple and easy card to finish off, but that background is so fun and shiny. It's got the dimension. You can feel the dimension if you run your hands over it, so it's got a lot of texture as well. I love the way this one turned out. And it took all of like 5 minutes to make, which is great. This would be especially great to make quite a few of and make a nice gift set for someone. There's one final last look at this fun card, and then we'll move on to the next way to distress your foil. So I like to do a lot of die cutting with this foil. It die cuts really easily, so I die cut a quick circle with some gold foil. Then I'll go ahead and put this in an embossing folder and run this through my die cutting machine. You do not need a ton of pressure with this foil to get a good embossed look, so take it easy. Start with less pressure. You can always add more, but it will crack fairly easily, so keep that in mind. I used a wood grain embossing folder for this, and then once I have that embossed on there, I'm going to grab a sanding block. Now this one is from Stampin' Up. It's super old. I would suggest not buying stamping blocks because they're glorified nail files that you can buy for next to nothing at the store. That come exactly like this. I mean, they're in a block form. They're block nail files. Look them up on Amazon. I'll leave a link down below. You can get a large pack of them for super cheap. So I will leave those linked down below. It's exactly what you're getting. but paying more for in the paper crafting department, just to be completely 100% honest. But I like to use these to go ahead and just sand off the edges of this and the raised areas of the embossing. It dulls that foil a little bit. It allows the paper to peek through. Then you can do inking over this if you wanted to. I left mine as is and let that paper peek through, but you can ink over the top of this to add even more distressing. Just wipe it off after you're done, especially using a pigment ink. It won't stick to the foil, but it will stick to that paper underneath. Now, that is the distressing part of this, but we need to go ahead and finish off the rest of the card. I'm going to place that circle right in the center of my card base, which is A2 and top folding, and I'm using a pencil to lightly draw a circle around it so I know exactly where I want to stamp all my little leaves and flowers and things like that. So for the next part, I am using this new stamp set from Joy Claire Stamps. Everything I'm using today, all the supplies, it's all going to be listed down below in the description box. So if you have any questions about the stamp sets I'm using or inks or anything like that, you can head down there and find all those answers. So I grabbed a few inks to do some stamping with, and I'm using all of those little leaves, those individual branches and leaves that are in the stamp set to stamp inside or outside that circle, because everything outside that circle is going to show. So don't worry so much about the inside, just worry about what's outside of that circle, if that makes sense. I'm starting off with some icing on the cake from Catherine Pooler and this very large branch, and I'll stamp 3 of those. This is my largest stamp. I like to start off with it and then work my way towards the smallest one. So once I have my last one stamped, I'm going to go ahead and move to eucalyptus ink, and I'm moving to a different leafy branch here. I like to twist and turn my stamp, move my card around before I stamp to make sure I have everything exactly where I want it. You can even bring back in that circle and place it over the top. I'll do that several times, you'll see, just to see how everything's looking. And it really gives you a true visual of what the card's going to look like, especially when that's placed over the top. So I stamped my last little leafy branch there. Then I am moving on to some sugared lavender ink and this berry branch. I'll overlap this with a few of them. That's fine. Some of these are more solid. Some of these are more, you could color them in if you wanted to, stamps. I'm going to leave them all as is. I'm not doing any coloring on this card. Then finally, I'll go ahead and go to Mandarin Spice ink with that little individual leaf and stamp him a few times around that circle. Again, just filling in all those little open spaces. Now, it was looking a little bit bare. I'll add one more leaf in here. So what I decided to do is fill in some area outside all of those little leaves and branches and things like that. I think that helps pull the whole thing together, make it look a little bit more full. And I will do that with those little berry stamps. I got the Skylight ink from Catherine Pooler out. I'm going to hold that circle in place and just stamp some of those berries around in any of the openings to bring everything together, make it look a little bit more full, and just finish it off. It really helps with the overall finished look of this card. And again, I brought that circle right over the top so I could see how everything looked and where it needed a little extra something. Now, once that was done, it's time to start putting together the card. I did use a liquid glue to glue down the circle. Most of the time I use a dry adhesive when I'm using this foil. I wanted to try a liquid here. It worked fabulous. I'm using the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. I placed a little bit on the back of that and just placed it right down over the cardstock, and it adhered really well. Now, once that was on, I added a little banner sentiment that I stamped Grateful for You onto with some icing on the cake ink, and this card was done. Super simple and easy, no dry time. I absolutely love the background of this with that new stamp set from Joy Claire. It's one of my new favorites. I can't wait to do some more wreaths like this. And I love the distressing on this. Again, you can add some ink into that if you wanted to. I left mine as is, but it is such a fun look, and with the embossing, it really helps kind of highlight that distressed look as well. Now, moving on to my last way of distressing the Rinea foil, I'm going to use a special product. This is the ghosting from Rinea foil. If you've watched any of my foil videos with them before, you know that this removes the color from the foil itself. And underneath the foil, the color foils, is either a silver base or a gold base, which is so cool. So all you do is take this ink pad. you can ink up a stamp and stamp it down. I'm just swiping in from both edges of this jade foil, and then you let it sit. I let mine sit for about 20 seconds. The lighter the foil, the less time you're going to need to let it sit. This could dry a little bit on there. That's okay. I like to just take a little bit of alcohol and kind of re-moisten the area. I spray it. I started off kind of slow, sprayed it on my cloth, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to spray it over the whole piece of foil. It wipes off so much easier that way, but it removes all of that color that is on there, which is so neat. Now, once I have the color removed, I like to go ahead and spray it with water just to get any leftover ink or alcohol that's left on there to kind of lock everything in place, make sure it's nice and clean. Then, if you want to, this is totally optional, but I'm going to ink the edges of this with a little bit of StazOn pigment ink. Now, this is a slick surface. This is a non-porous type of surface, so you need to use something that is going to stick to that surface. StazOn ink is one of my favorites. I love the StazOn pigment, which is brand new. You can also use like the archival inks. I believe those dry on this. I haven't tried those, but I'm pretty sure they do. I believe people have said that. Don't quote me on that though. But I just take the ink pad and swipe in from the edges, bringing that a little bit towards the center. If there is any like little texture or anything on there, it's going to pick it up. It really gives such a neat look to this finished card. I went with peacock feathers from the StazOn pigment ink line to go with the overall blue look of this, and I really loved the way it turned out. It mixed really well with the jade and the silver, so it was a nice color combination. Now, the great thing about the StazOn pigment ink, aside from the StazOn regular ink, is that it stamps like a dream on paper too. So I wanted my sentiment to match, but I didn't want to try and find another ink to match it. I just wanted to use the StazOn pigment ink that I had already used. I didn't want to get anything else out. So I can do that with this. I grabbed my sentiment, stamped it on a little circle die cut. The one thing to know about this ink is it is a little bit sticky. That's okay. I just eyeballed it and lined it up again, but just know that it is a very sticky ink. It's going to stick to your paper, but that's a good thing because then you know it's going to stick to your non-porous surfaces as well. So I went ahead and mounted that on a piece of craft cardstock. I also matted my little foil strip with some craft cardstock and attached everything to a card base for a very, very simple card that I finished off there. A final look at all of the cards. Now, these are all fun ways to distress your foil. You can use one of them. You can combine them all and use them all on the same card. They are a lot of fun to mix and play around with, so just have fun and experiment. That is going to do it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. There's going to be tons of information down in the description box, so be sure to head down there. Thanks for watching, everyone, and happy crafting.